Hi, I'm continuum.mid, and this is FreeDean, an entirely free/libre review show for the Dean of Doom format. Today we'll be reviewing Episode 2 of Freedoom Phase 1 entitled Ruin Upon Ruin, on the latest development snapshot as of recording. If you're not familiar, Freedoom is a total conversion of both the Ultimate Doom and Doom 2 that was conceived in order to free the Doom community from the limitations of Doom's copyright. It's been under active development since 2003, led by Simon Howard and Mike Swanson, and featuring about 100 contributors, including myself. I first played Freedoom on version 0.11.3, and at the time, Episode 2 was called Military Labs. It was full of terrible music and ugly, poorly designed levels, but in the latest release it received a major facelift with 5 new maps and an all-new soundtrack by Korp, so it's the obvious pick for most improved episode. I'm excited to get into it. First, a little bit about my playstyle. My source port of choice is DSDA Doom. I play on Extreme Carnage, sometimes with a pistol start and sometimes continuous, and I don't really care about 100%. I will give each level a subjective rating from 0 to 10 for quality, and 0 to 10 for difficulty. Don't take them too seriously, as your ratings are sure to differ. Let's get into it. E2N1, Elemental Gate. Elemental Gate is short, simple, and so easy it could be E1M1. It only takes 1 minute to beat, just hit a switch, grab a key, and you're done. The combat is completely anemic, there's nothing new compared to Episode 1. It's one of the only maps to use Freedoom's replacements for Plutonia textures, but said textures are mostly brown and green, like a lot of other maps in Freedoom, and thus fail to make this one distinctive. There is one element that gets me really hyped for the episode though, and that's the MIDI. There's a different map with the same name, also by Xindage, in 0.13, and I like that one a lot better. The old Elemental Gate is harder and more complex, so I could understand an inexperienced Doomer finding it to be a difficulty spike, but in it I felt like I was working toward a concrete goal, which is a rarity in Doom maps. I think they should have kept it. Quality, 5 out of 10, difficulty, 1 out of 10. E2M2, Shifter. Shifter is also really short and easy, and I think it belongs in the E2M1 slot. Technically it's the first level with a trilobite, but I didn't notice at first because it's not used in the most interesting way. Just a few traps that are easily dispatched. The layout is a little awkward. There's a bridge in the middle of a room and a teleporter that takes you behind a door that's right next to it. But the sleek visuals make up for the confusion, especially this AGM branded carpet. Quality, 6 out of 10, difficulty, 2 out of 10. E2M3, Reclaimed Facilities. Freedoom used to have a ton of levels that were just rehashes of Doom or Doom 2 maps. Most of those have since been removed, and the project now discourages direct references to id levels. E2M3 is one of the few leftovers. It pays obvious tribute to Doom's E2M2 with its prominent crate mazes, its lone berserk in a corner, and its crusher hallway. But it has just barely enough original ideas to avoid the same rip-off allegations. Otherwise, this map is very easy to get lost in, with switches that activate bars halfway across the map, keys for doors on the other side of the map, and inconveniently placed teleporters. There are also some confusing texturing choices, like the red key door being telegraphed using a red door track, the tombstones made out of switch textures, and the use of the exit door texture on random doors. Combine that with the 3 barely distinguishable crate rooms, and it makes for a map that you're certain to spend a lot of time lost in, and not a lot of time actually playing. Quality, 5 out of 10. Difficulty, 3 out of 10. E2M4, Flooded Installation. I love everything about Flooded Installation. The standout texturing, the insane detailing for a vanilla map, the exciting Painlord and Trilobite showdowns, the super secret ectoplasmic surge that comes with a message from the mapper. It can be difficult to navigate. The tiered structure in the main area means seeing a landmark near you doesn't necessarily mean you can get there quickly, but I even love getting lost in this map, because it means I get more time to listen to Korp's stellar MIDI. Flooded Installation is like if something from Back to Saturn X was randomly inserted into the middle of Doom 2. The jump in quality is almost surreal, and I wish that all of Freedoom matched it. Quality, 10 out of 10. Difficulty, 5 out of 10. And speaking of great music, time for this video's intermission. From now on, all of the remaining parts of my Freedoom review will have a short segment at the halfway point to discuss an element of Freedoom other than the maps. This time, I want to talk about the guy who composed this entire episode's music. I said it in the first episode and I'll say it again. Korp is one of the best things ever to happen to Freedoom. Before he started contributing, Freedoom was full of weak, generic MIDIs consisting of seemingly random notes on guitar. We saw Korp's talent for atmosphere in the last map, the text screen music, and we can also see it in his work outside of Freedoom. And Korp's not too shabby in the melody department either. He's not as consistent as his peer, Blue Warrior, who I'll get to in the next episode, and I will criticize him for that in a moment, but his work from Spectrum Descent shows he can absolutely kill in that regard too. I didn't even know you could do that with MIDI square waves. And that gets into what makes composers like Korp unique. They're very good at bending the rules of MIDI using preset instruments in ways they were never intended to be used, and creating effects with clever sequencing. I feel obligated to offer some criticism here, but it's hard to think of anything. I guess a couple of his MIDIs have a weak start. But even then, once the rest of the song comes in, it's amazing. I suspect that what's happening there is that Korp frequently composes the bass line of his songs first and leaves them at the beginning, which is something I do with drums, but the bass melodies don't always stand on their own. A couple of his tracks also have lead melodies that are a little too noodly and dissonant, but it comes off as an artistic choice rather than a lack of understanding of melody. With that, I've danced about architecture for long enough, so let's get back to another map and another amazing Korp MIDI. E2M5, Underground Hub. Underground Hub is the best of the pre-0.13 maps in Episode 2. I have a lot of fond memories of this one. Dying to the Crusher hallway, almost dying to Slime, finding the Polaric Energy Gun for the first time and using it to melt trilobites. It's quality stuff. The real standout aspect of this map is its secret hunt. You'll need to walk through some damaging slime to find a secret switch, and that sets off a series of consecutive secrets all across the map, one with a yellow key and others with more switches. I'm not sure how Xindage expected players to guess that this slime fall was a secret exit though. I found it once using the automap, and then forgot where it was during recording and had to re-record the whole level. Quality, 7 out of 10. Difficulty, 3 out of 10. E2M9, Fortress 31. Meet Zoc. A once prolific contributor to Freedoom, Zoc is responsible for 1 map in Phase 1 and 3 in Phase 2, plus a second Phase 1 map that has since been removed. His style is instantly recognizable, but not for the best of reasons. Zoc maps are typically over-detailed, labyrinthine messes. Fortress 31, in particular, has a non-linear progression, several doors that never open, and switches that open things in faraway parts of the map with no clear indication of what they do. One thing Zoc does excel at is outdoor areas, and I'm not just saying that because I take every opportunity to praise Freedoom's outdoor areas. The well-thought-out architecture makes all his maps feel like they're part of a larger world. I wish I could praise the interiors in the same way, though. They're just as confusing and abstract as any other non-linear tech base. There's not much to say about the combat. The corridor shootouts are competent, and there's plenty of enjoyable teleport traps, but it's all overshadowed by how much time I spend looking for each of the fights. Quality, 5 out of 10. Difficulty, 5 out of 10, but mostly because it's hard to navigate. E2M6, Hidden Sector. Hidden Sector is the most inoffensive level in Episode 2. The combat's decent, with 1 or 2 nasty traps, but it loses its edge once you get familiar with it. The abstract layout would probably annoy me a lot more if I didn't find the automap, but once I got used to jumping over the central hallway, it didn't bother me at all, and in the darker moments, it really works. The MIDI is solid, just like every other MIDI in this episode, but it's the one I have the most mixed feelings about. This part is absolutely gorgeous. And so is the main section, but the square wave melody is really dissonant and odd sounding. Maybe it's intended to match the map's abstraction, I don't know. Quality, 6 out of 10. Difficulty, 4 out of 10. E2M7, Control Complex. The scale of this map is visible instantly from the opening shot. So much bigger than anything before, it's the first map in Freedoom that will crash Vanilla Doom if you save upon entering. It takes place in this giant tech base with several courtyards, containing some of the most challenging and fun combat in Freedoom so far. You'll have to manage ammo early on, and move carefully to avoid being picked away at by hit scanners. The 3 keys needed to exit are locked behind switches scattered around the map. Normally, I'd be annoyed by the distance between switches and the things they activate, but the progression is surprisingly natural, and you're likely to figure out where the keys are before you find the switches. It's still possible to get lost, but you'll find your way in short order. Fittingly for such a colorful switch hunt, the music reminds me of Eternal Doom. Quality 9 out of 10. Difficulty 5 out of 10. E2M8 Containment Cell. This is, by far, the worst map in Freedoom. It pulls the exact same trick as E1M8, copying Doom's homework and just doubling the number of enemies, but it's even less creative and doesn't have the benefit of going down easily. It looks dull and boring, all grays and washed out greens and 90-degree angles. Killing the 2 assault tripods will require you to use all the ammo you can get, but just by looking at the map, you wouldn't know that there are any ammo caches in it at all because they're behind stone walls that look like decorations, and you have to shoot them to open them, which has never been required in Freedoom up to this point. Once you do know that, it can be an exciting fight, but it's more likely to feel draining and tedious, especially to someone who's never fought an assault tripod before, and will therefore probably get insta-gypped by the rockets multiple times. And that's all there is to the map. Like I said, it's just a short boss fight and a poorly designed one at that. Only positive thing I have to say is that next to E2M7, it shows that Xindage has come a long way as a mapper. Quality 0 out of 10, difficulty 6 out of 10. Thanks to the mix of both new and old levels, Ruin Upon Ruin has all the inconsistencies of your average community chest. Xindage is the only mapper I can think of who has both a 0 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 in the same wad. Despite his messier side, I admire his efforts to make E2 its own thing rather than a rehash of the Shores of Hell, and his best work makes me excited to see what he'll do in the future, both in Freedoom and hopefully some other wads. My favorite map of this episode was, of course, E2M4 Flooded Installation. My least favorite map was E2M8 Containment Cell, and the hardest map of the episode is E2M7 Control Complex. Special thanks to Josephus Astartes and the Troll and a Half for their feedback on the last video, and to Uni, once again, for crediting the mappers. I hope you don't mind that this series is somewhat unoriginal. I have some more original video ideas, like a video essay on JPCP, but I felt like I could better review Freedoom and practice making commentated videos in this format. Anyway, I'll see you in part 3, where I'll be covering Event Horizon.